Hello, Billy the Artist here, and we are back with another How to Draw lesson. Today we are doing Professor Snape. Yes, we did Draco last. At long last, you guys finally got to do Draco. Do check out the link in the cards and the descriptions for How to Draw Draco in the Harry Potter playlist as well. But do like and subscribe. Click the bell for notifications because there are lots more How to Draw videos coming your way. And we do have on the Harry Potter playlist, not only do we have Draco, because you've waited patiently for a long time while I've been doing my motorcycle oil paintings, but he is now done. We do have Hermione, we have Dobby, but we also have Harry as well. Plus Ron and people from the Fantastic Beasts movies, and we have all the shields and crests, and we also have Hogwarts crest and Ollivanders, so the house shields and things like that, so do check them out. But we also started this new batch because I am doing a lot while people are now homeschooling and got to stay at home and do the drawings, do homeschooling, so you can do a lot of drawing. There is over 110 lessons already on my How to Draw playlist, covering things from Olaf to Toy Story, a racing car, all kinds of characters, Secret Life of Pets if you want to do animals. So there's all things on there, so do check out in the cards and the descriptions. But these were the new ones, and we did the toilet roll, that thing that went missing on the shelves in the UK. Very strange, very bizarre. There you have it. But we also have the cell, the thing that's causing all the issues right now. Medical illustration is very, very important. All the nurses, doctors, surgeons, virologists, epidemiologists, all of the people who have studied, you were at school, when you were at school, if you did anything in biology about the human body and the form, you needed a medical illustrator. Get doing the drawing, learn how to draw. It all starts, even though it's all digital now, even things like this zombie, I did with a zombie pencil. That's a pencil that is unbranded and didn't know what grade it was, but we did the entire drawing, so you can draw with anything at any time. Do check these out. But medical illustration is very important. Before everything, computer games and book illustration now was done in computers on a graphics tablet or one of these screens that you can draw on straight away. It started with a pencil. So do check these out. Do share them out with other people who need drawing lessons. And I'm going to be doing a lot more. There will be more Harry Potters, but there are a lot more and a lot more subjects to come. And I just want you to have fun. So do check those out. And like and subscribe for all the future stuff. Now, we are going to be starting with the trusty 2B pencil. Now, I have used other pencils before. These are Faber-Castell. I've used, when you see the other blue pencils, they are Staedtler. And these are the ones that I've used the most. And I'm going to give these a go. I've given the Staedtler ones a go because I use a technical pencil. At the beginning of the zombie one, there is a 19-20 minute piece about pencils and pencil grades and all that kind of stuff, and you'll see all the different pencils do, and it's good to experiment. But I'm back with the trusty 2B, and we're going to give Snape a go with this one because he is in Slytherin and it is green, so green and gold, it is quite nice. So we are going to use these are series 9000, and I have used these since my university days, many moons ago, nearly 30 years ago, nearly now, back in the early 90s. But we are going to use this grid, and we are also going to use shapes. Check out How to Draw Anything Part 1 in the description and in the cards. It's in the How to Draw playlist, and that's the absolute basics where I show you how you use shapes to, you can create anything from a bird, a bee, a flea, a tree, a horse, a house, or anything else, is what I say in that video from a long time ago. But this one, I've got this grid on here. It's a 2 centimetre grid. Again, see the banner? The actual measurements for this are all in the banner. And I start in, we've got a centre line here. This is at 105 millimetres. Now, that's half on the A4 page. A4 is 210 millimetres by 297. Now, I've got a 2 centimetre grid. Now, if you check out How to Draw Olaf, again, he's in the How to Draw playlist. I use a grid like this to show you its basics. This is an old master's technique. but it helps you to place absolutely everything. And across the top, so just inside, we've got at 5mm, 25, 45, 65, 85, 105, 125, 145, 165, 185 and 205mm. And that you can see, you'll see the grid over the reference image presently. Then down the side we have 5, 25, 45, 65, 85, 105, 125, 145 is just above the centre line of the actual page. 165, 185, 205, 225, 295, 265 and 285. So that's the grid that we are actually going to use to draw Professor Snape. So now we are going to get on and we are going to do Snape, and we're going to draw him starting with the trusty 2B pencil. We will be using possibly the 4B and 2H as well. Now we are going to start, and we are right on the centre line, and it is 105 to 105. So again, I am just drawing a rectangle where this eye would be, and that's going to come across halfway. Now we want his nose. His nose is quite a big triangle, and we've got a bit of a rectangle there, and I want a bit of a rectangle there for his nostril. His left eye is started over on the 145 line, and that kind of comes across to about there. So I'm just putting a rectangle in. Again, these are just shapes. His eyebrow and it goes up halfway. We've got a bit of a triangle coming out there. Now again, all these grid lines that are on, I've done very, very dark. You want to draw them on very lightly. I've used the 2B pencil to actually get these lines on. You want to draw them on using something like a 2H, but very lightly. I will do a video in real time of actually drawing the grid. It takes a while, but your foundation is important. Now, his eyebrow, his right eyebrow, is another rectangle that's there with a bit of an angle, and then it kind of comes down here, so we want another little rectangle. Now we've got this line of hair coming down the side, so we just want a long line, but you can see here we've got this triangle that comes down as it curves around and curls into this square here. So we've got a little triangle shape there. That's going to go up there, and then we just want to curve that across the top. Now right at the top we've got his part in here, and that goes right up across, and we can see across 3 squares we've got the top of his head, and then it curves down around out the back. Again, here we just want, now there's a bit of a triangle shape on the edge of his, you can see, created by the actual grid lines. And so that way you're actually using the grid lines to help you create your shapes, and that allows you to draw in the actual lines using them as reference points. So now we want, it's more like a banana really. Let's just face it, we've got a big banana coming down where his hair comes around his face. Now we've got his cheek coming down the side here. So again, we've just got a big rectangle. In fact, we'll come down underneath his nose, and here where his lips are, we just want a rectangle, just comes to the right of there, and it comes to the edge here. So you've got a triangle there, rectangle there, and then little line underneath for the bottom of his chin. Now again, we've got this fantastic rectangle shape here where underneath his bottom lip, his chin is like chiseled in, which is quite good, and again that'll make a brilliant shape. So we've got a rectangle there, rectangle for his jaw line right at the bottom, triangle there, and this is just putting in your proportions, coming up right underneath, and we can't even see his ear, but here we can see there's a V. So coming off this triangle of hair, it makes an inverted V, like a mountain top, peaked top of a mountain. So now I'm just going to put a diagonal line in there where his nose is, and again another one down there. Now you can see these lines, these are quite light. I'm not pressing on too hard because these are the construction lines and you've got the grid, and then we're going to put the line on quite hard, an outline, in a moment. So what we need to do now is, so off from 85 you can see where his hair comes up, and then we've got coming all the way down to 225. You've got a triangle here. There, you've just got a triangle. So you use the grid lines to help you create that triangle. And then again, you've got a full triangle where you can see that hair is going to come back in and around. Now here, his robes of his cloak. He's a professor, so he's not just got a simple cloak, but we've got a bit of a parallelogram going on there. That's a sloped rectangle or a sloped square, and we can draw that down to 85, and again the same there. And we've got his collar here. Now in this circle there's a big button on his collar, but again we've got a big parallelogram going up into the dark of his hair here, and then that joins right down. We've got another button right there, so just draw a little oval, and then you've got this fantastic shadow line caused by the collar, and there, here you can see you've just got a gigantic V, a triangle here caused by his collar going up. So there's a big V, and then we're going to draw right the way down that line off, and we just want to, where his collar joins, and then we've got his kind of shirt collar underneath his chin. So here we've got a V, and then a little kind of rectangle shape joining onto that V, coming underneath, and then a triangle there as the shirt collar goes down, and then we've got a lighter line there. So now you can see very, very quickly we've got all the shapes in, and we've used the grid. Now this grid will take a while for you to put in, but it is very, very worthwhile using a grid like this because it helps you put the shapes in even faster, and you can then draw more accurately once you've got the shapes in. So now we are going to start with Professor Snape's left eye. So you can see the left eye within this kind of little rectangle. You've got where it comes down to his tear duct, and then it curls underneath, a bit like a V, and then that curves around, and that's on the centre line there. His eyeball is kind of on the centre. So you can see you've got that V shape there, and then a curve. So imagine like a capital D, you've just got the D there. But we want the dark coming out of his upper eyelid, and then that comes down, and that comes quite a way down. The fold of his skin is creating that dark. Now his actual eyeball curves just on the inside of that line, and then it comes from the top and curves that way. Now his pupil is actually very tiny, but there's a very sharp highlight. So I've just drawn a little circle to leave the highlight white. And we need to extend that line up, and you've got the fold coming over his eyelid. Now I'm just going to gently fill that in with a little bit of tone, and we'll darken all that down properly. Straight away you're starting to see your portrait to take shape. Now we're going to do the same with the right eye. Now the right eye is dead on the 105 on the centre line, and we just want a diagonal line coming down for the top of his eyelid, and that kind of goes right the way up, and then we can follow the actual line over to about a third, and then we want the diagonal coming down to his tear duct there. Now as this curves out down to the back, you can see it goes to about the centre, so we want to bring that down of the square and just curve that down a little bit. Now his actual eyeball, again we've got this lovely curve, so just think of a long extended sweep like a banana, a long banana shape. That's going to go all the way round there. Now just to the right of the line we want that D, so imagine his eyeball as the iris and his pupil as a big circle. That's like your D shape. And then on this side we want to put that in, and then this highlight is just on this side as you're looking at it on the left hand side of the 105 centre line. And again, little pupil dark underneath. Now I'm going to just colour that in quick. Straight away you've got a pair of Professor Snape's eyes starting to look out at you. Now he's got big bags under his eyes. That comes right down to that line. And we've got the shape of his eyebrow coming down there off the top. We've got the fold, we've got another crease line right in the corner, but here you can see you've got a triangle of shade. So we can build that up, create his eyebrow, just put a little bit of shade in, and already you can see it's starting to give a little bit more form to the character of Professor Snape's head. So we've also got this crease line just about a third in. Now we're going to do his nose. So you can see here going up, well, off his nose, up his eye socket and his left eyebrow. And you've already put the rectangle shape in. It just curves a little bit when you did the basics. I'm just shading that in. I'm adding a little bit of shade right into that corner, and then you've got the curve coming around. Now we want the shape of his nose, and it's amazing because it's not just you've got the triangle, so you've got a fairly straight line on your quick guide shapes that are in, but you can see that it's curved, there's a bump there, and it curves back down, and then the edge of his nose curves around. So I'm going to use the grid. I'm going to draw the end of his nose, so that comes around and cuts back just above that little corner, and then to the centre you can see it goes and folds just underneath, back under. Now here we've got his nostril, and you can see a little rectangle there and a line back down, so you've got those shapes quite simply, and then just round off the edge, and then you want a C here for his nose, the edge of his nose, just a nice simple C shape, and then that goes up, right the way up to just past the halfway line. Now we're going to join his nose up to the corner of his eye socket. So now that kind of comes down a little bit straight and then just bends out, and then you get this bend of his nose that comes and joins here. So you've got that lovely shape going up and joining, and we can now pull over his tear duct a little bit more, and his pupil, his iris and pupil. So now we're going to do the edge of his head. We've got a nice curve there, again just the edge of a D. We're going to curve from here all the way down. Use the shape of your wrist to just curve and follow down. And already you can start to see Professor Snape. So now we want to do his cheek. So that comes out and then kind of goes straight down a little bit. And this is his hair causing these shapes. And we can bring that shape of that hair over. Now the edge of his cheek comes down and in a little bit, and then comes fairly straight down again, and then it curves coming down to his chin. And this then kicks across about halfway, and his actual bottom of his chin is about a third up in this square. So we can draw that over and join those lines up. So there we have this side of Professor Snape's head now done, and we're going to bring this around up, and his chin line that comes up just comes above the halfway point. Oh, it's about halfway. Oh, that's better. Now, side of his cheek, we've got this lovely dark shadow. That's underneath there, and that comes underneath that chin line that you've just put in. And then you get a little wobble, and it goes up to just below the corner point there, and then off up underneath his hair. Again, just following the shapes that you've actually put down and the grid points. You get his hair coming in. We want a nice curve, and then that's going up to his parting, and his parting is right in the centre, curve his hair off now. That goes over the top just a little bit, and that curves right the way down to the outside. And then we want to bring that back in to just past halfway. Again, follow the flow of the hair. It really helps. And then bring the hair down past his collar. Again, I can now just draw the collar on in a little bit more detail. Just give that a little bit more definition. There is Professor Snape looking at us. Now, that's my electric pencil sharpener. I really like that new toy. So now we are going to do Professor Snape's lips, because that was getting quite blunt. So now here we've got the shape. So we've got a rectangle where his actual lips are, and we need to actually put them in. So you've got like an M here, but you can see the centre is just above the centre line and just to the right. So we want the top of his lip there, and that comes right down across the corner, and then a long shape curves down, comes underneath to the corner of his mouth. We need to curve. You can see you've got this shape, you've got a rectangle here just of his top lip, which is fantastic. And if you follow the shapes around, we've got again just this U shape coming round of the line between his top and bottom lips, and then it folds over into where it goes down to the corner where he's got that corner of his mouth where he kind of snarls and turns up his lip, as it were. Now his bottom lip, you've got this fantastic little shadow here, and that's just creating that little shape there, but his actual lip is just a long curve right the way across. Now we have here now, it's just like an elongated W, but coming off his corner of his mouth, if we actually look at it, we've got like a number of parallelograms. So you got like a parallelogram there, you got this fantastic one here. He's just thinking geometric shapes, and then another little kind of rectangle there, and then another one here, and then the one that goes off and creates the crease, and you've got this lovely light that's coming down here, this highlight on this side. But when we shade this in, this will really pick up. We need to bring the shade down of his lip, and in fact I'll just, like I did with his eye, I'm just going to shade that in. I'm going to shade that nostril in a little bit. We need to add just a little curve around the edge of his nose. Now, as I said, we've got this kind of W that starts here. I mean, in fact, there's a line that comes off and joins over. So on that little triangle that you've got there, you can start the curve, and then it goes up, just curves over, curves up and joins there, and then goes off down. And that's such a beautiful shape, but you've used the grid lines and those shapes to make it very, very simple. What looks complex, you can actually break down into simple shapes to make things a lot easier. Now, I just whacked in that diagonal line, but it needs to be moved over a little bit. It's more right in the centre and just above that nostril. Now again, we want a kind of triangle there for his nose, the crease between the centre of his mouth underneath his nose. And then the same going down there. So now we'll come back up for his hair on his parting. We can now bring that right over around the back of his head. And then that comes all the way down. And just do it a little bit wobbly wavy because it's not a perfect line, and you can see like the hair, it does curve in as it comes down to his shoulder. So we've got these highlighted parts now. It's all within a dark tone. Again, I'm using this paper to protect my hand and the sheet from smudging. And that's just a very, very simple technique that you can do. If you look on my portraits time-lapse of the drawings that take me a few days to do, you'll see I use a plastic bridge that allows you to see through all the time, and that keeps my hand off the page. But I made that specially so as I could do that, whereas I'm doing these drawings how you would do them as well. So anyway, now we're on his collar. Again, we'll just follow this line down to the edge, and then that just curves over, and there's a nice darker line underneath. We can just increase the intensity on the top. There's going to be a highlight there. Now this has got like two parts, so that comes out, comes down, and then cuts across, and you're just following your construction lines down, and that joins there. Now that then comes over this dark point going right the way up over to his shoulder and underneath his hair. There's a nice triangle of dark there that we can indicate. Again, I'm doing all this with a 2B pencil. You don't have to do these lines as dark as I'm doing them. I'm doing them so that you can actually see the image appear. Again, it's all down to experimentation. So his right shoulder, we want to do the right side of his cloak. We're just going to darken that up, bring that down. That curves over and then kind of comes straight down a bit, comes down. The outside just goes down there, and we can see there's another button there, so just a simple little ellipse to indicate the button. Then where the cloak crosses over, and we can move that line up into the dark, then increase that button there. Then we've got a nice simple shape, and then we want this collar that curves around. We can follow that V down, and we've just got quite a strong highlight there, and then the actual shape of the lighter goes up underneath, and the darker goes right the way up there. Now we can follow that collar up, and then it just curves underneath. Now, his shoulder coming out onto the right, that comes down, follows that point all the way down. Then we want a wider one that just goes out. And these are all the folds in his cloak over all the different layers. So we can see here we've got another one that comes down, and this is our kind of more inside line. And then you want a line that goes up there, that flows down, and that fold goes up. Now here we've got some fabric that's sewn together and joined, so we can add those on. Now again, we're just going to add these detail lines quickly on this side. So here we've got the fold line that we've just done on that side, the matching on this side. So we just want that curve there and another one on that side. We can then build that up, and that goes right the way up to his hairline. And I keep turning the pencil so as I'm using the sharp, because it's a 2B, and it blunts relatively quickly. You just turn the pencil and you get this kind of slightly sharper bit again. So now we're bringing this fold all the way down, shadow of that comes down, that goes out across there, then we've got another slight triangle there. Now the fold comes down to about 2/3 of the way over, and then that goes up over his shoulder, and you've got another kind of fold there, and the shoulder goes off. And again we've got the sewing, we can just see like these track lines of the sewing. But there you have the outline of Professor Snape. And now we can start detailing up. We're going to erase out all the grid inside, but there you can see the full outline of Professor Snape. So now I'm just erasing out the 2 centimetre grid lines that I put in, which were our guide to help us actually get Professor Snape down onto the paper. Now these ones down over the hairlines, you are going to rub out some of the drawing that you actually put in, but that's okay. Now, because when you put the shading on and the rest of the detail, it'll pull it all back together again. Now remember, when you actually put these grid lines down, don't put them down as hard as I have. I only put them down this dark so that you can actually see them. Now it does kind of look a bit arty when the grid lines are just kind of showing. I'm going just over and around the edge, just cleaning the eraser off. You see it gets dirty because you really are picking up a lot of pencil. Now I'm trying to just take out as much as I can with this larger eraser. Again, this is a Stettler Mars plastic, it's called, and it's just, over the years, it's one that I've come to really enjoy using. And so much about art is the feel. You get used to using certain equipment and certain techniques, and that's all part of the process of experimentation. You might find that you like a particular eraser or a particular brand of pencils or paintbrushes or paints, and the more that you use the same equipment, the more familiar that you become. And you can understand this with musicians, how they fall in love with their instruments. So you hear it with classical musicians who've got, like, say, a hundreds of year old Stradivarius violin, and it's that old and that settled in, that the wood is just, everything about it just makes the tone and it makes it sound beautiful. And it's the same whether it's a guitarist. You know, guitarists might have a particular acoustic guitar made of particular woods, some of them older, some of them could even be new, or an electric guitar. And the woods that were used in the 60s and 70s for electric guitars, whether it's Fender or Gibson, will obviously be different than a wood that you would get now, because it was from a tree from a long time ago. Now this, again, this is a Mars plastic, but it's in a kind of pen. So because this is a little bit narrower, it means that I can remove some of the lines in the detail areas and not obliterate the underdrawing. So again, this is just something that I came across, and if you look online, or you can still go to your local art store, as I said before, all of my local art stores have gone. Now, I live in a town with 250,000 people in, and all we've got left now is W.H. Smith's and Ryman's, whereas before we had a couple of shops. One was called Webley's. It was an independent bookshop and art and craft store, and then one of the staff members, when that store actually closed, and it closed because the owners were retiring and nobody really wanted to take on this massive business, one staff member set up her own independent shop. And because of the way things have changed, because of the internet and town centres and all kinds of stuff, and the fact that she ended up having her first child, that store has now gone. So actually having a dedicated art store close to me has completely disappeared. But you can see here that if I'd have used this larger rubber, I wouldn't have been able to get rid of the lines in between these detail lines of his cloak and in his hair. So now I'm going to just brush that off again. Again, it's just a very large 2-inch, very old brush. Goodness, even it's that old. Oh, it is, there we are. This is a Dale Rowney brush from years ago. Absolutely years ago. This might be 25. I mean, that rattles. So it's loose. I might have to glue that on a bit or crimp it. But it's just great for brushing the bits of eraser off. Now again, I'm now going to use my putty eraser. I use eraser, the word eraser, because that's the kind of more universal global term, whereas in England we call them putty rubbers, because you are rubbing on the paper and you are rubbing out. So that's how the word is actually interchangeable. Little bit of etymology there for you. Might actually do a full bit of etymology and find out exactly how it originated, but that'll be for another video. And again, I can really pinpoint some of the lines, and there we have, without the grid, our wonderful Professor Severus Snape. So now we are going to pick up some of the detail just that came off, just so we can really make that lip curl over. And his nostril, and the edge of his nose. Now I'm just picking up where his hair came down over his cheek. I've picked up these lines just a little bit before we start pushing the shade in. So here we want that hairline coming down over and onto his collar. And actually, so we've got another button. There are 3 buttons. And so we want to put that button in there, and then we've got a line coming around under his collar, and the same on this side, and a bit of a fold line in the crease, and his hair coming right the way down to the edge. Now it looks very, very bright. We've got a very strong highlight, kind of the light's coming down from this direction. And we've got the shadow underneath his nose and underneath his eyebrows. But what we need to do is very, very gently. In fact, what I'm going to do first is here we can see there's a good bit of shadow shape caused by his hair coming off over there. And again, the same caused by his hair there. Now we've got a highlight, a strong highlight coming on his cheek here and down his nose, but it is very, very light. So I'm really holding the edge of the pencil. Even if it was a full length pencil, I'd probably be holding it very, very lightly, just to feather in the tone. And I am going to go all the way over Severus's face. And this is incredibly light. I'm filling all his forehead down to his eyebrows. Right the way down to there. And I'm just filling in all of these shapes. So all down his cheek. We've got a highlight down his nose, but again we can use the putty eraser to pull that out. So now I'm following this over, and as we've done the drawing up here, this is you can see the lines a little bit more. But now, because I haven't twisted the pencil, it's actually just filling in full tone. I want to fill in that eye, above his eye and underneath his eyebrow. And it's just toning the paper nicely, but very, very lightly. Same thing coming down the side here. Down over his lip. I'm just putting one complete coat of tone down. Very quickly. So now I'm starting in this V caused by his hair, and obviously it's going to be darker, but I'm just putting this universal tone. Again, I'm doing this very quickly. And what's just happened is it's actually caught there. There's a little blemish there, but again, we can build that up in a bit. And that was just a little piece of the eraser left on the paper, and the pencil caught it. So now I'm gonna, again, I haven't twisted the pencil. I'm going back over his forehead again, and it's actually smoothing the lines out. So now we've got the white of his collar. Again, this is just a 2B pencil. It's a very, very, I find it a very, very versatile pencil. And sometimes when I've been sketching live, that's all I've used. Because you can get such a good variety of shapes and tones, to create the shapes that you want to make the shape and form that you want. So now, again, you can just see that there's a full tone now all over his face, as opposed to the paper here. Again, the paper that I'm using is a Dale Rowney cartridge, smooth cartridge paper. It's got a slight tooth on it, and that is, I find, very, very pleasing to work with. Now, I've got my putty eraser, and I'm just going to pull out right next to the line of his cheek these strong highlights right down the side. Got a little bit coming off from his eye, down the side of his cheek, a little bit on the top of the eyebrow, the eyelid, top of his eyebrow. Now I'm just dappling his forehead, and I can see that the pencil is coming off on the eraser, and you can hear that, and it just gives it that slight little lighter tone. So now I can highlight it next to that crease. We've got the strong highlight right next to the edge of his nose. The creases underneath his eye. Now we can bring it over to this eyebrow. Top there, the top part of his lower eyelid, then the fold next to his tear duct, and then the bags under his eyes. Again, just like his forehead, coming around his cheek, and the same up his nose. Now we want strong highlight there, going up to his nose from his top lip and on the side. Bottom of his chin, where we did this kind of nice W. Now I've just pulled off that little bit of rubber that caught the pencil as I was just putting the shading in. So now we're going to come back in. I'm just going to take out a little bit more the pencil there, and we're now going to start detailing up Professor Severus Snape's eyes. So we can bring the top of his eye out, but we can see it curves down. So you've got this lovely straight line out when it comes down into this fold. And we can darken that tone down a bit. And we can curve that down. You've got the fold in the dark coming right up underneath, and then the fold above right down towards his nose. Now, very carefully curve that down from his eyeball, and then that goes right up to his tear duct. Darkened his pupil in, because this is quite sharp, actually darkened his pupil in quite strong, and the tip of the pencil makes it very, very black. This is still the 2B, not using the 4B just yet. And I'm leaving the white of the paper for the highlight on the pupil. Now, darkening down his iris as it comes right down. You've got a slight lighter tone as it comes around. And there, all of a sudden, Professor Snape is looking out at you. Now his eyebrow is kind of fuzzy. Yeah, there's no real sharp defining hairs, but I'm doing this kind of little cross hatching gently, just increasing the pressure but going in the same direction that his eyebrow would actually go in. So now I'm using the side and the edge of the pencil because that's a little bit lighter, and then we want this part right on the corner of his eye socket. You've got like a little V of shadow shading there, and then the shade comes right the way down to just above his pupil. And again, as I always say in the videos, it's easier to add tone than it is to take it away. So now we want crease going up there towards that crease line, again I'm now increasing the shadow tone of that eyebrow. There you can see Professor Snape really starting to glare off the page at you. Darkening down where it comes down to the eye, corner of the eye where it meets the nose. And a little bit of shading around the tear duct. Now, underneath the eye, we've got these little U lines, which are kind of where the bag is. These bags underneath his eyes from his harrowing and hard life, and the stress and strain of not getting the defence against the dark arts position. So now just darkening that eyebrow down a little bit more. Now the top of his eyeball is underneath here, so you've got shade just coming down around the corner. Now you can actually use the smudging tool, as I have done in other drawings, like you can see in Draco, but I'm just trying to do this with the pencil as much as possible. You can smudge with your finger, you can smudge with a piece of toilet roll. All of those are viable techniques, but I just want you to see what we can actually do with a pencil. So now we need to do his right eye. So I'm doing the dark of the upper eyelid, and his pupil, again being very careful to leave that white highlight. We've got the dark at the edge of his iris, that goes right up to the top, and very dark at the back. And then the iris is much darker underneath where the top of the eyelid is, and then it just lightens when it comes round underneath. So I'm just making that darker, adding that very carefully. Now, got a lot of shadow on the eyeball there, and then coming down to where the tear duct is, we can increase the shadow there. That fold goes right the way up, and then we've got a nice triangle of shade coming right off at the corner of his eye. And then here you've got a little square of shade right in that corner, and the same where it goes to that fold. I'm just using the side of the pencil, just adding little bits more. Build up the detail in that shade area. So now I'm increasing the shade of his eyebrow going up, and we've got some lovely little mottled bits where it comes down to the side here, and then a little bit lighter, bit shade on the top, and a little bit around the top of the eyebrow. So now we want the curve of his eye, lower eyelid, coming round and going up to where the tear duct is, right in the corner. And we've got darker shadow just coming underneath, round underneath the eyeball, just curving slightly. Now bag underneath his eye. And there you can see Professor Snape's eyes really starting to lift out towards you. We want to build up the shade underneath his eyebrow, that a little bit more. Just to give it that delineation. Darker into that fold. And then this bag under the eye, like this big U of this kind of bag under his eye. And then we can, here we've got the kind of crease in the side of his nose. And the shadow on the side of his nose, the bridge of his nose going up to the corner of his eye. We've got some little crease lines going across the brow of his nose. Going to build up the tone underneath his nose. We're going to put in these shadows where they kind of need to go now quite quickly. We've got a shadow shape right underneath his nose that kind of comes down to the bit over the top of his mouth. You want a little bit going up the bridge of his nose. So now down his cheek. Now I'm just looking, actually I can see a little bit of shadow there. A little bit of shadow going up where that crease is. Again, you can see I'm holding my pencil very lightly and using the side. I'm not holding it as you would write and use a pen. My hand is kind of hovering over this piece of paper that I've put down. So now I want to just build the shade up underneath his hair. And if you're not confident of doing this on a full drawing yet, then just get a piece of paper and just squiggle. We've got here right across his forehead now. There's a bit of a crease. And from the corner of his eye. So you can see how just the form and shape is slowly starting to come together. Now it'll really lift off when we put all of his hair in, but we need to just get the face in as much as we can. So I'm coming down now where we've got the crease lines on the corner of his mouth and from his nose down above, top of his mouth. We got kind of shadow tone coming across his cheek, and then that comes down and around underneath the side, and then from his hair down here. So we've got a very dark pocket of shadow kind kind of where the jowls of his cheek are starting to form. And then that goes up right underneath. And you can tell I'm pressing on a lot, well, not a lot harder, but harder here to build and increase the shadow and tone that's underneath the hair. Again, right underneath his nose. So actually we've got a very dark amount of tone. We've got the nostril, and then underneath the centre part of his nose. And then the fold in between. And then this kind of triangle coming down from his nostril. Just like we've got here, we want to just increase that tone a little bit. Now again, on the Draco drawing, I used smudging tool and a tissue paper, but I just want you to see how you can build the tone up slowly. Well, not that slowly, but you can build the tone up just using the 2B pencil. And if you just keep going over and over slightly, and here we've got that shadow on his cheek, you can build up the tone and it just fills in on the paper. As I was saying earlier, I use this Dale Arowney smooth cartridge paper because I like the tooth, I like the effect that it leaves of the pencil going over the tooth of the paper. And this isn't a rough cartridge, it's just quite a smooth cartridge, but it's not Bristol board, which is very, very smooth. That's a hot pressed paper. So now we want to do the curve of his nostril, coming right round, and we've got a much darker tone there, and that is coming down. So already you can see Professor Snape, his face, the details are really starting to come together. So we've got this darker tone caused by his nose coming just that little way down, and as I was saying earlier as well about like a musician using the same instrument and becoming so in love with it and so used to it. Very sadly, I did hear, never found out, a cellist from Liverpool Orchestra had his cello stolen from his car outside a venue, outside a theatre in Liverpool, and he said it was like losing a limb because he was so used, he'd played it for so many years, a couple of decades. I don't know if he got it back, which would be absolutely tragic. And this is the thing, I love these pencils. I've used these pencils for so long. I really, really love the feel of them. And that's just something that comes with time. And you just get used to using certain materials. And I hope that you find the same experience as you develop your drawing and painting, and you get used to using certain brushes. Now I can remember I tried some new brushes. Again, just keep looking and following where I'm filling the tone in. And first attempts, like some of these new brushes that I tried, and they were synthetic, they were brilliant, but they didn't last on the grain of canvas that I used. It just ripped them to shreds very, very quickly. Whereas I use Hogs and Sables and they work very, very well. So now we're going to build the tone in down on his lip. And that's coming right the way over. We want a little bit of lighter tone coming out over his bottom lip. You can see his pursed lips. Again, on down to this W. We've got this great shadow cast by the fold from underneath his bottom lip. It comes right the way around. And you've got darker shadow there, and again just where that crease comes over. And then that comes down here, and we've got a nice slightly darker tonal patch there. Now Professor Snape is starting to have a three-dimensional face. So now we're going to do the dark coming round of his chin. We've got that coming down. Want the folds of his shirt. We've got a much darker patch of shadow coming right underneath his chin, and then just to the edge we've got this fantastic crease coming down off the corner of his mouth, and then you've got that shadow, like a rectangle of shadow there, and it curves around and up. You can see getting all of the form and shape of his face together. Now if you're going to spend a couple of days, you can really, as you can see in the portraits time-lapse videos where I've done a motorcycle racer named Joey Dunlop and Avicii and Harry and Meghan and others, where you see those, you can see you just spend a lot more time building up these shadow areas and the tonal varieties in the face, and you can just build it slowly, and you can use other grades of pencil like the 2H and all of the other grades, 4H, 6H for lighter tones. So now here we've got his chin. We've got a nice strong highlight here, but we need to fill in his chin a little bit. That's looking rather good. I hope you're enjoying this. This is fantastic. I'm really enjoying doing Professor Snape like this. And now we're building that down. Now again, I'm just very carefully going to fold up this kitchen roll and where the shadows are, I'm just brushing lightly around the edge and on his cheek here, down his nose. It's really, that's quite dirtied that up quite quickly. So I'm just folding to a clean piece because I'm on his forehead where I want to keep the lightness, and on his cheeks, in his eyeballs. and that'll push the pencil over quite a lot and smooth the tones out a little bit. And there you can see his face is really coming together. So again, now we just go back in very carefully and just pull back in some of these highlights. Now, coming up the side of his face, carefully round his eye, the bag on his eye, just above that eyebrow, the side of his forehead, coming over to the centre, dabbing right at the top, and then gently dabbing over the fold of his upper eyelid, then the central crease in his forehead. Again, I'm just dabbing to remove little bits of the pencil. So the crease is there, but it's very, very faint. Again, right in this corner where the tear duct is, following the shape of the bags under his eyes, top of his cheek under that big bag, just dappling that off. Then underneath the crease of his nose, on the side of his nose, we've got the strong highlight, carefully rubbing that out up the bridge of his nose, right the way up, and then this one coming right down onto the top of his lip, then inside that fold, top of the lip on this side, and then the crease. And this is how amazing a putty eraser can be as a drawing tool as well. The crease coming down off there, underneath the corner of his mouth, bottom lip, top underneath that crease. Again, just really pulling that up strong. And there you can see Professor Snape looking very, very good. Now we need the reflected highlights on this side, just dappling. And that'll help in a moment when we start to fill in his hair. Now, really pushing that pencil round underneath, because coming down we've got a very strong highlight that comes down there underneath his chin, and then quite a strong dark line as well. And we will probably end up using the smudging tool. We shall wait and see. But we've got to really increase carefully the shadow that's down underneath his chin. And coming up the side. Again, I'm using the side of the pencil so as I'm not getting a sharp line to increase that shadow all the way up. And it's quite dark, going right the way down on the collar. To the edge there. Now we can darken the shadow in this fold underneath his cheek. And then underneath his hair. And that in itself, just the face with all the outline, that's actually quite arty. And you could leave a drawing like that. We're going to fill in all of Professor Snape's face and hair. And you'll see how it really lifts everything off when you put the shadow in all the way around his face as well. So now we've got the edge of his hair. I'm using the tip of the pencil and turning it just slightly, just to get some nice crisp lines. For the hair that's wisping off the edge and right the way over the top. And you can put some more of these in after, but it just gives you a little bit of freedom artistically. So you can see here we've got strong highlights at the back as well. So I'm just putting a couple of indication lines in where I want to leave the highlight showing. We got, like I say, we've got this darker tone here. So now I'm going to be using the side of the pencil, but I'm drawing it in the direction that his hair needs to go. Again, this is still the 2B pencil. We've got a highlight coming down to where his eye is. Now I'm being careful as I come down right by the side of his face. So you want to very carefully fill that in so that you don't come over your lighter parts. Using the tip of the pencil now a bit sharper because you want to really keep that delineation by the edge of his forehead coming down to his eye socket and his cheek. And then you've got this hair that's coming down across his cheek, and I'm using the curve of my hand to draw that in the correct kind of direction. Now coming back up to the top of his hair and his parting in the centre. We've got a highlight right at the top, so it's just slightly darker coming in and then it's darker still, and then it goes off, but you've got this highlight here at the top, so just indicate some lines but leave some of the highlights showing. Again, I'm just twisting the pencil as I'm drawing. Just to keep the pencil using the edge of the, even though I'm using the edge of the pencil, as you twist it, you still get a sharper edge just on that slight angle as you're lifting up. So now we can indicate this darker part coming down across his forehead, caused by the wave of his hair coming out and over and coming down the side. And I probably will go over this in a moment with the 4B. But already you can see that is darker. So now we've got a little triangle of dark here down the side of his cheek where the hair comes down and comes across his face. And then I'm now going to sharpen his cheek up all the way down. Now it is really dark down here, so you will need, you can either use the 2B and you'll press on quite hard. We've got this hair that just comes over the lower part of his cheek as well. I'm indicating that a little bit stronger, and then a couple more there. You can see how they curve up. But I'm just filling in the direction of his hair is going using the 2B, and I'm turning the pencil. Now you could try and fill in all of the really dark areas with a 2B, but you could spend a long time doing that, and that's where a 4B will come in. And I've got a darker patch there, and then here you can see you've got like this highlighted area. And a little darker bit on the edge there. But already you can see how the hair is framing the face. And Snape, living in the dungeon, doesn't really get a lot of sunlight, so he does have that very pallid expression and the colour of his face. Because he doesn't get much sunlight, being the potions master. So there is the hair. Now on the other pictures that I do, I would spend, you know, if it was a slightly quicker one, I would probably spend 2 hours just on the hair, if not longer. And we're doing this full drawing in a couple of hours. So it's just, I'm showing you the basic techniques that will allow you to develop your skills so that when you want to do a fuller portrait, you actually can. So now I'm using the kitchen roll and I'm smudging the tone all the way up. But where the highlights are, because I've just gently done it, I'm now using the putty eraser to pull these up again. Just quickly, there you go, you can see how that really lifts them up. Kind of expression, it's very expressionist, and again you need to spend a long time using sharper pencils to actually get very photorealistic. But that's a choice you can make. I'm giving you the basics to build it up, and there you see a little bit of how the face is coming together. Now before there we go, we carry on, we're just going to sharpen the pencil. Now I'm using the side, because like I say, I'd done all of this without sharpening the pencil and that was my wonderful new toy, my electric pencil sharpener. Now I'm filling in quickly, relatively quickly, Snape's hair. To frame his face completely. Again, I'm still just using the 2B pencil. And I'm going for a very quick mid-tone, but again you can see I am drawing in the direction of the hair, just as if you would be brushing it. This has been a really good picture to work on. Very, very happy how this is coming together. Again, I've got lots of ideas, so do like and subscribe and click the bell to be notified, because I've got lots, some very good basics videos coming. Some with pencil, some with felt tips, and lots of ideas for what to do to encourage you all with your drawing in so many different ways and styles. So again, you can see I'm just filling this in now, leaving some space for the hair on his hair, the highlights on his hair down here. But do like and subscribe. I mean, here you can see for the updates, but here you can see we've got his hair coming down, and there's a nice little bit of darker part, and because you're using the side of the pencil, you're actually filling in quite a substantial amount of area very, very quickly. And this is what we're going to try and do. I'm going to build the tone up. Just using this pencil. Again, the 2B is so versatile. And I know this is Slytherin green, but I really do love, and again, this is personal preference. I started using Faber-Castell pencils when I was at university, and the reason that I did that is because they were in the art shop. I was doing a multidisciplinary design degree at Staffordshire University many years ago in the early 1990s, and the art shop, which had to supply about 9 areas of design, these were the pencils that they had in stock. Before that, I'd used Rexel Derwent and anything that I could kind of get my hands on. And I can remember the Rexel Derwent ones because they were black with an orange band around the top. And they were quite nice, and I will get a box of them at some point this year and have a play. But I've used these pencils now since then, for all of that time. So now the nib's gone again, the end of the... And that's so much quicker than using my old ratchety desk pencil sharpener. I really like my electric pencil sharpener. So we have now filled in all of that hair. So now I'm going to form a point with the kitchen roll, and again I am following the direction of the hair. So you've still got some of the lines that you've left, that you've drawn left, as you smudge the actual graphite of the 2B down. So that's just filled that in quite quickly. Now we're going to pick up the highlights of his hair using the putty eraser. So we've got a very strong down the back there. So there you can see straight away nice splash of light on Professor Severus Snape's hair. Now at the top, I'm not going to press on as hard, and you have to keep kneading the putty rubber because it picks up the graphite off the paper and it literally sticks to the eraser. So you have to keep kneading it to get a clean point. And so that helps to bring in some more little definition down the side of his head. And there we can see Severus. His face now framed by his curtains. I can't remember which book it is, but they talk about the curtains of his hair falling down the side of his face. And somebody did leave a comment on one of my YouTube videos, might have been the Malfoy one, that they'd read the books for the 65th time. Now I'm rereading the books again. I'm going through them. I read them when they first came out to my children who are now all adults. And I had to take a few days off work when the last book came out. And that was good fun. So now, again, I've got the side of this pencil. And we've got all of the tone now of his cloak going all the way, and I'm going like we did with the face, very lightly. Now this one, it doesn't matter, like I said, I've just gone over there a little bit, but that doesn't matter because his hair comes down. And I'm just filling in the shapes to get a mid-tone in, because there's no stark highlights. So you can see here I'm filling all of that shape in, this triangle here, very quickly using the side of the pencil. And that's all filled in really quickly. Now again, you can even use the dirty part that we've just done on the hair, and I'm now just smudging this down. And that really pushes the graphite into the paper, but you can still see some of the pencil lines underneath. Now, here we've got a highlight on the edge, going up there, and right the way up the edge. Then we've got a highlight on that button, the edge of the cloak, and then up the centre. Again, I'm just dappling. Again, the same now on this side. Highlight up that fold, just over the top, going up there, that fold, going up into the centre. Now this is where I'm just putting these on as little indicators, because we're now going to use the 4B pencil. You can see the little highlights. When we put the dark on with the 4B, it will really help. Do you know, I thought I had a 4B that was unused, but I don't. So this is a brand new pencil. So, oh, there goes the end. In fact, let's convince it to be like the other pencil. Again, the shape, the chamfer, was different to the 2B pencil. And so I was applying pressure the same way as I was with the 2B pencil, and that caused the tip of the nib of the pencil, the tip of the end of it, to just shatter off. So here now, I'm carefully coming down, and we're being a little bit impressionistic. Because the focus is on the eyes, we don't have to do all the detail all down here in exactly the same way. So we've got, I'm resting my hand on my left hand on my right hand, so my hand is not touching the paper, and it's just giving me the freedom for my hand to move and the pencil to move quite freely. So now I am filling in quickly all of this dark, the shade coming right down underneath his collar. Over the top of that shape, filling in there. Then we can darken that part underneath his chin inside the collar. Now you can see straight away we've got a very dramatic difference from these tones here to the darks down here. And we're going to build this dark up and then build it up into his head and his hair and around his head. But we're doing these with nice, vibrant strokes of the pencil, quite bold and impressionistic. So we've got that button, we've got another button underneath, and then another button down there where the fold goes over, and that button. We've got the dark just inside his collar. Now we need to really push that black up there. And where the collar goes up and underneath. So there already, the tone that we've added is actually really starting to frame the bottom part of Severus's chin. So now we've got these darker lines and these folds coming down. Again, rather than putting the piece of paper down, I'm using my hand as a bridge. And that's allowing me to draw quickly, freely, and quite expressively. Then we've got darker tone in that fold there, going right the way up, and the edge of his cloak. So you can see straight away we've got multiple folds there. And And this is the beauty of drawing, is that you get the chance to create something that looks three-dimensional. Now we've got a button here. Just by pushing tone around. And just keep looking at your reference. So now I've just pulled that dark all the way over. We need to put a little detail line there. And then the dark of his collar. Coming all the way down, and we need to increase that. Again, we've got this button on the side. We've got a nice dark line going up here, right to the hair. We've got a good solid shadow underneath his collar, highlight on the edge of his collar here that we've got to leave. And we need to fill all of this in relatively quickly. But this is the beauty of doing a drawing. Now again, as I've spoken about the hyper-realistic artists who are out there, they could spend anything from a week to 2 weeks to 3 weeks to a month, if not more, doing a portrait. And they will put 40, 80, 120 hours into a portrait. And I'm doing this really quickly, just so you guys can get the techniques. But what I'm doing here, if you take your time, you can make it look like a photograph if you want to. But you can see just the wonderful expressive pencil strokes. You're creating the image of what you want people to actually see. And this is the beauty of drawing. You are literally pushing graphite around a page to convince people that you are looking at Severus Snape, Draco Malfoy, whichever one of the portraits it is that you've been doing from the lessons. Olaf, a cartoon character. So this is the joy of art and drawing, whether it's painting as well. So just going to sharpen that up again so as we can start adding darker patches coming up into his hair. But again, even though I'm just going up and down very quickly, I'm still going in the direction of his hair as if you were brushing it. Now here we've got a nice triangle of dark shadow. Coming down over the top. Now, I'm filling that in really quickly. And again, you could use an 8B. That's even softer and darker. But I'm going to stick with just using this 4B. And we haven't even touched the 2H yet. You could use the 2H to increase the tones on his face. We might do that in a minute. I just want to get this in. I mean, there, straight away, that's looking rather splendid. And I was saying earlier about liking and subscribing, because I want to start doing, like, these are a couple of hours to do a full portrait like this, but I'm going to start trying doing, there's one up already, a very quick portrait of a comedian named Bill Bailey that I did off one of his promotional tour leaflets. We went to see him in concert, in tour, doing his stand-up show a few years ago, and I did a very quick freehand pencil drawing portrait in about 25 minutes, and I'm going to start trying to do those kind of things again a little bit more regularly, because it's by doing quick sketches that you can develop and hone techniques. If you can see a quick sketch actually come together, that really helps you learn and develop your skills as an artist. Now, there we have Snape. He's really all of a sudden just come alive. So now I'm just pushing the tone down. You can still see the pencil lines, but by actually pushing it round, see, that's filthy now. With the kitchen roll, that I'm now increasing the black again, because the kitchen roll, as you've pushed it around, has actually lifted some off. So I'm now intensifying the darks again underneath his collar. But I love the burring and the shine that you get when you really press on like this. And I do hope that you do experiment with things like this in other drawings, you know, so you just learn and have a go, and then copying this, but then you'll apply it to something else. Just get a piece of paper and practice shading like this, developing shade and tone, because then the more that you do, when you're actually drawing something for yourself, so that's looking, I mean, that all of a sudden is really coming together. I really do like that electric pencil sharpener. Now I have got to use the paper, because there's a lot of pencil on there. So if I put my hand there, I'd be putting my hand on a lot of graphite pencil. So now we're darkening down parts of Severus around his face. I mean, it's down by the side of his cheek. We just need to be quite careful, but still pressing on. This is his hair coming down over his collar, but we want the shadow to come up, this darker shadow, up past his lips. And we've got little patches of dark on the right hand side. Now I'm using the point and I'm just turning it each time I make the mark. so that I keep the sharpness. This is a 4B, so it will go blunt very quickly. So now I'm inside his parting, increasing the dark, and then where his hair goes over the edge. But we do want this little triangle of dark accentuating. Now you can see how it builds up and frames his face very quickly. So we need to do the same just on this side. And we've got this V of hair coming down. It's going to come right to this corner. And you've got that little bits of hair kicking up. And we've got this triangle of dark shade. And then where it comes down over his ear, just indicating quickly, turning the pencil all the time. Make a few marks and then turn the pencil. And there Snape has really started to look, and we're getting close to the finish now. We just need to sharpen the pencil again. I'm going to sharpen the 2B as well. Now we are going to quickly add in some darks around these shadows. Again, I'm using the 4B because it's a softer, darker pencil, and it's allowing me to fill in areas of dark very quickly. I'm just indicating where the hair is, the direction and flow of the hair. I'm just turning the pencil just to keep the point sharp. So we can work up his head now, just increasing the tone, going all the way up. And you can hear by the sounds that I'm working this really, really quickly. But you can spend as long as you would like on the hair. But I'm going for it impressionistically, so you can see it's really starting to look quite good. And our Professor Severus Snape is nearly complete. And you leave the whites of the paper showing through, and that gives you your highlights. this is an absolute joy. I have to say, I really enjoy doing this, and I'm so thankful to you for enjoying my lessons, because it's a joy to show you what you can actually do with a pencil. Again, it's lighter up at the top, and we've got tones coming down. So I've just put a load of pencil, and if you squint you can see where it's kind of darker. And then you can add more tone. Which is really good. So we want that tone there, and we've got to increase the tone, the shadow down his cheek, over the top of his collar. Round past that highlight. So again, if we get the kitchen roll, pull and push the tone up in the flow and direction of the hair, then you get your putty eraser, pull it to a very fine point. You won't get all the pencil off, but you don't need to, but you'll just get a little bit off, even over the dark areas that it's like a rogue hair catching the light. So now coming down over the top, the side of his head. Now you can see it's really giving his head form, but it's lighter at the top. So I'm pulling more off right at the top, and then gently smudge it back in again. Now, the stronger highlights up the side. We can then, it's just a question of working in and out, backwards and forwards, until you are content. People would use the word happy, but until you are content with the stage that you have got your drawing to. And that's when you call it done. So here we're building up his hair and around the strong highlights. To make a highlight really stand out, it's got to be next to a dark patch as well, and that really lifts it up and makes it stand out. So there you can see like the effect of the highlights makes his hair look greasy. Now it says like his greasy black hair. That's really good. So again, I'm now trying to get a clean part of my kitchen roll, because I want to soften the shadow where his hair folds over. I also want to push the shadow down here, down his cheek, and then under his chin, under his nose. Need a new point again. Again, I've not used my like I did with Draco, I've not used my actual smudging tool because you may not have access to it. And it's been good to actually experiment and do this full drawing with just a piece of kitchen roll, because if that's all you've got access to, that's what you can use. And I want you to see what you can actually do and produce with basic equipment. Other drawings I might use the smudging tool, because it's a wonderful thing. If you can get one, get it, because it really does help with your drawing. Now that collar needs darkening down underneath there, and we need to increase that a little bit. Again, I've just used the kitchen roll to intensify those shadows. I'm still using the 4B pencil, so now we're going to come in and increase his nostril, the shadow in his nostril, and then underneath the nose where that comes down, and the corner of his nose, and then on the side where that comes around, and then there's a shadow that kind of comes around the bottom of the tip of his nose, and then around his nostril where it's really dark, going to the edge. Now again, coming up to his eye and his eyebrow, just making that darker. And this is the thing, you've done all the work, you did all the work on his face beforehand, and now you can pull it all together and just match some of the tones up. But be very, very gentle. That's coming down over his eye, top upper eyelid, the fold, and off in the corner where his eyebrow goes. We want the dark coming around his iris, above his pupil. Remember, leaving that little highlight. Same on this side, we want to darken the pupil, going right up in that fold of his top of his eyelid, coming down into the corner, and then we can just increase the darkness a little bit in the corner of his eye socket, going to where his nose is. That fold. And there, Severus is looking at us quite menacingly. Bring his nose round a little bit. Now we need to increase his lips. So you've got the M of his lips curling down right to the corner, that little kick coming off to the corner. And it's a little bit darker on this side, coming underneath. You've got a little bit of a reflected highlight, so very gently filling in close to the centre line of his mouth, and then we've got underneath his bottom lip, that crease there, crease on the edge, and then we've got this crease coming down. And you can see that's really made his mouth have much more shape and definition. Now we want the shadow in the creases in the centre underneath his nose and coming down there. So now I'm going to increase the highlight on the top of his lip. I'm dabbing gently over the top of his lip coming down on this side, and then the same thing on the side of his nose there, and even inside the little fold. And then that triangle. Just dabbing some off. So now we are very, very close. Increasing the highlight up the side of his face. A little bit of a reflected highlight in his cheek there, on the side of his cheek, and that coming down. And then we want very strong highlight on that collar. Now I need my 2B pencil. Because I'm increasing the shadow underneath his chin. And the 4B would just be too soft. Whereas with this, you're actually pressing on top of the 4B that's already there, so you can see that's actually making that line darker. That's because it's working with the 4B that's underneath it. And the same there. And we want that shadow going right the way up. And now we've got some points of his hair coming down. And the 2B being that little bit sharper means we can draw these hairlines quite quickly. Darker shadow on the side of his face and his eye. Well, that's definitely looking something like. Now, what I am going to do very quickly is we're just going to use a 2H. Again, in exactly the same way. Hang on. There we go. Nice sharp point. In exactly the same way as I've just done the 2B. The 2H working on top of the 2B. If you squint, you can kind of see the tones. And you can just build up a little bit of extra tone. Now, go up the side of his head, across the top, underneath where his parting is. Now, where that is, we do need some highlights just indicating amongst the hair. There you go, straight away. That just gives it a lovely little bit of definition. And the 2H coming underneath his nose, right at the bottom. We need the fold in the corner of his nose there. very lightly increase there, and that gives that highlight a little bit more strength. Underneath his eye. And this is the thing, you're just looking and drawing. So here we've got the shadow of his cheek coming down. And we can pull that hair right over to his nose. And we've got more of those hairs coming over his face. Some hairs there. Now, because this is so sharp, you can actually put this in the hair and it gives you fine, solid, sharp lines. Again, that just gives a little bit of definition that in an overall drawing adds something more. And we are getting very close. We've got the shadow caused by his hair across his mouth, where that crease comes up and that comes down. Right down around under his chin. Triangle there on the side. So now we are really getting close, and this is where you can fiddle and faff and keep playing and tickling and just having a lot of fun. I'm actually using my finger, that's now filthy, just from pressing on that once. So let's get back to keeping relatively clean. Doobie for the shadow there. Now my putty eraser, reflected highlight on his cheek there, a little bit coming up there, a little bit on the side of his cheek there, side of his chin, and up the side of his face. Some final little bits. I want the 4B to really darken that shadow down. On his collar. And this is where you can kind of get a little bit arty and just put some wiggly lines on. And that, I must say, is rather wonderful. This is the 2H again. I'm just finishing off, bringing the shadow down the side of Snape's face. And now I'm pulling to a very, very, very fine point. I'm doing it again. I've just touched where the highlight is in the pupil, and it's really just taken off any dust, and that gives real life back into Snape's eyes. So now just back up on his nose. I'm really intensifying, and this is quite flat light really on his face. I'm just trying to pull up, highlight these strong highlights on the side. And the same on this side. Highlight on his upper eyelid, and finally on his eyebrow. Last little smudging. And now on the side of his mouth there, across his lip, a little bit of reflected highlight. 2B pencil. And then the final bit on the bottom of his chin. Oh, 4B, 4B. Sharpen up the side of that collar, and that is pretty much it. I really hope you've enjoyed that. I have. That is fantastic. That has been a really good lesson to take you through. It's seems a very complex picture to do, our full portrait of Severus Snape. But I do hope that you've enjoyed it. The basic techniques, and you've seen it from the very first pencil line right the way to the completion. The longer you spend, the more detailed you can get. Anyway, please do like and subscribe. There will be more tutorials coming very, very soon. Take care, ta-da, enjoy your drawing.